สวัสดีค่ะผู้บริหารและบุคลากรทางการศึกษาทุกท่านเราสองคนทีมงานนิทรรศการสื่อการสอนใหม่ Worlddidac เอเชียขอเรียนเชิญคณาจารย์ที่กำลังมองหาสื่อการเรียนการสอนสำหรับสถาบันการศึกษาของท่านเข้าร่วมกิจกรรมออนไลน์ Match and Meet ครั้งที่ 3 ค่ะ
ซึ่งจะจัดขึ้นตรงกับวันที่ 27 พฤษภาคม ตั้งแต่เวลา 9 นาฬิกาถึง 18 นาฬิกาผ่านทาง Zoom Meeting นะคะ โดยกิจกรรมนี้จัดขึ้นเพื่ออำนวยความสะดวกให้กับคณาจารย์และผู้ประกอบการได้พูดคุยอัปเดตเกี่ยวกับเทรนด์การศึกษานั่นเองค่ะ
และเปิดโอกาสให้ผู้ประกอบการได้นำเสนอสื่อการเรียนการสอนใหม่ๆนะคะไม่ว่าจะเป็นสื่อดิจิทัลเพื่อการเรียนการสอนห้องเรียนอัจฉริยะ Smart Classroom สื่อพัฒนาทักษะสเต็มศึกษาและวิทยาการคำนวณชุดฝึกอาชีวศึกษาค่ะ
รวมถึงอุปกรณ์ป้องกันการแพร่ระบาดในสถานศึกษาและอื่นๆอีกมากมายโดยอาจารย์สามารถพูดคุยกับผู้ประกอบการไทยและผู้ประกอบการจากต่างประเทศได้โดยตรงผ่านโปรแกรม Zoom Meeting ซึ่งจะทำให้ทุกท่านสะดวกและมีความปลอดภัยเพียงแค่มีมือถือหรือคอมพิวเตอร์และสัญญาณอินเทอร์เน็ตก็สามารถที่จะเข้าร่วมกิจกรรมนี้ได้เลยค่ะ
หากอาจารย์ท่านใดนะคะสนใจเข้าร่วมกิจกรรมนี้หรือต้องการสอบถามข้อมูลเพิ่มเติมสามารถติดต่อได้ทาง LINE @WDDA ค่ะและทางทีมงานนะคะยังสามารถออกจดหมายเรียนเชิญอย่างเป็นทางการเพื่ออำนวยความสะดวกให้กับอาจารย์ได้เข้าร่วมกิจกรรมครั้งนี้กับเราด้วยค่ะ
อย่าลืมนะคะพบกับพวกเรากับกิจกรรมออนไลน์ Match and Meet ครั้งที่ 3 ในวันที่ 27 พฤษภาคมตั้งแต่เวลา 9 นาฬิกาถึง 18 นาฬิกาค่ะ
เราพบกันนะคะสวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะพบกับพวกเราทีมงานนิทรรศการสื่อการสอนใหม่อีกเช่นเคยนะคะกับกิจกรรมออนไลน์ Workshop Academy สำหรับปีนี้นะคะเรายังมีกิจกรรมดีๆมากมายไม่ว่าจะเป็นทั้งทางด้านวิชาการ Digital Learning และเวิร์กช็อปต่างๆโดยวิทยากรผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิจากสถาบันการศึกษาชั้นนำไม่ว่าจะเป็นทั้งในประเทศและต่างประเทศมีทั้งแบบออนไลน์และเจอกันแบบตัวจริงเสียงจริงอีกด้วยค่ะ
หากไม่อยากจะพลาดกิจกรรมดีๆแบบนี้นะคะสามารถรับชมรายละเอียดเพิ่มเติมได้ที่ www.worlddidacasia.com ค่ะหรือที่ Facebook Fanpage นะคะ Worlddidac Asia ค่ะรวมถึงการสมัครสมาชิกนะคะเพื่อเป็นส่วนหนึ่งกับเราค่ะกับ Asia Educator Club นะคะโดยท่านนะคะสามารถสมัครสมาชิกเพื่อเข้าร่วมกิจกรรมดีๆตลอดทั้งปี 2564 ได้นะคะโดยรายละเอียดการสมัครสมาชิกสามารถรับชมได้ระหว่างรายการนะคะโดยจะมีตัววิ่งด้านล่างค่ะ
สำหรับงานนิทรรศการสื่อการสอนใหม่ Worlddidac Asia ปีนี้นะคะจะจัดขึ้นในวันที่ 20-22 ตุลาคมที่ไบเทคบางนาค่ะ
และในวันนี้นะคะวิทยากรผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิของเรานะคะก็จะเข้ามาแวะเวียนให้ความรู้กับทุกท่านนะคะรวมถึงครั้งถัดไปนะคะก็จะมีวิทยากรผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิทั้งจากในประเทศและต่างประเทศค่ะเข้ามาให้ความรู้กับทุกท่านผ่านทางช่องทางของ Worlddidac Asia ค่ะ
ย้ำกันอีกครั้งหนึ่งนะคะรายละเอียดเกี่ยวกับเวิร์กช็อปออนไลน์ทุกท่านสามารถที่จะคลิกเข้าไปดูได้ที่เว็บไซต์ Worlddidac Asia ค่ะ
และในวันนี้นะคะวิทยากรผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิของเราก็พร้อมที่จะมาพบกับทุกท่านแล้วนะคะขอเชิญรับชมรายการของเราและพบกับวิทยากรผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิของเราได้เลยค่ะ
Good morning. My name is Hadden Allen, and I am one of the vice principals here at British Columbia International School in Bangkok. It is a privilege to be here today with you as I walk you through one of my favorite curriculum templates, Understanding by Design, also known as UBD, which is adapted from Grant Wiggins and Jay McTighe. First, I'd like to speak to what UBD is not. UBD is not a philosophy of teaching. It is not an approach to teaching. It is a teaching framework that allows teachers to effectively utilize curriculum and structure their lessons based on long-term goals. I first fell in love with curriculum when working at the American School in Costa Rica. It was there that I understood American Common Core curriculum. Through that, I ventured into the International Baccalaureate and utilized the IB curriculum and the PYP framework. Here at British Columbia International School, we utilize the British Columbia Canadian curriculum. As you will shortly see, all of the types of curriculums that I have worked with are able to be applied in the UBD template. It is developed so that when you teach, you make your curriculum and instruction goal-focused. I'm going to show you how to do that today. You can be a bad teacher with a really good plan. But to truly be a good teacher, you have to have the pedagogical knowledge, the hands-on practice with curriculum mapping. You have to be able to build student rapport and student relationships. And you have to be able to communicate and collaborate effectively with your teaching team and administration. So unfortunately, today, I can't help you be a good teacher, but I can help you create short-term and long-term goals that will hopefully help you design your curriculum units and assessments more effectively by utilizing my approach. Here are some of the big ideas of UBD. UBD is a backward design model. It is important because your plans need to be well aligned to be effective. We often see these two sins, aimless activity and too much coverage. That is often seen in elementary classrooms where teachers prepare far too many activities to rush through their curriculum content to get to the end of the unit. However, that teacher is not taking the time to understand and to cover each curricular strand effectively. We want our students to be able to transfer their goals. The essence of understanding the point of what they're learning. Students often fail to apply their knowledge that they learn inside the classroom to their assessments. We need to make sure that students understand over big ideas. They have to utilize this to allow the transfer to occur. When students transfer their knowledge and information, it creates connections in our learning environment. Fragmented learning becomes more difficult and less engaging. You want to see students engaged. You want to walk into classrooms and see students utilizing play-based structure. You want meaningful learning. This is engaging activities that invite students, and this is often demonstrated in workshop models. Plans need to be well aligned to be effective. Vertical alignment in your curriculum from K to 12 is essential to curriculum mapping and planning school-wide. It's like the famous quote by Posters, "Chance favors the prepared mind." Utilizing the UBD structure will help you be prepared for any teachable moment to help you understand your goal. For example, as teachers, we've all got the one student that wants to share their idea. You prompt them with a question, perhaps during a guided reading, and that student babbles out information that is not really relevant to your topic. That's your student or your classroom leading and writing their own curriculum. What I'm here to talk to you today is to prepare yourself for those teachable moments by knowing what you want them to learn and by knowing what the goal is at the end of that unit. If you know the end, you know where you want to go. And part of knowing where we want to end up is with thoughtful people. We don't want students that cram for tests. We don't want to march through the curriculum. We want students that have thoughtful understanding that can then transfer their knowledge. So some key points to remember. Too many students learn without thinking. Instruction has become an activity, repeating the teacher. That is often seen in math classes, where a teacher will utilize a math algorithm and then provide worksheets. Most test questions are recall. Where's the deeper thinking? If we want students to truly understand and to be able to apply the knowledge that they learn, we do not want them to cram for the test to simply recall the answer. The course, your course, what you're teaching, is not the textbook. The textbook's the resource. The activities are the steps, and the content is what's to be mastered. This is the big difference between just knowing and really understanding. I'm going to speak to you now about short-term plans versus long-term goals. This is the heart of what UBD framework is all about. We need to try to keep long-term goals consistently in view. This is how we determine where we want to end up. We want to end up getting the blend of content and performance right. Notice how I said performance and not process. Well, that's because we want our students to perform. We want to know how they're performing so that we can monitor how they're achieving academically. This determines our growth. We want to better engage our learners. And we do this by creating multiple tasks to allow students to complete them in class for us to assess. So now is the time, in March, that I ask all of you as teachers, put yourself to the test. Ask your students to simply assess themselves towards your course goal. What is your goal? What is the point of your class? Do your students know that? I'm going to give you the example, and I love this example because in education today, these two words are simply buzzwords: creative and critical thinking. All schools want students to be critical and creative thinkers. We see this in all of our curriculums, we see this in school mission statements, and we see it in the values that education is instilling within children. It is completely possible in nearly every school in North America to get straight A's if you simply do your work and you try hard and you come to class. You participate and you're eager to learn. Is that critical and creative thinking? If critical and creative thinking is the goal long term, then we have to plan week in and week out to focus on developing critical and creative thinkers that will learn from our content. A fatal mistake that is seen far too often, and here is an example. A Tier 1 school in New Hampshire concentrated so much on critical and creative thinking. They decided to outsource and utilize Columbia University's Teachers College to come in and to assess their student growth in critical thinking. So they did. They came in and all students in grade 9 through 12 were assessed on their critical thinking abilities. And what happened? They had zero growth. The students weren't able to apply. They weren't able to transfer. And they weren't able to master and develop their understanding of knowledge. Why does this happen? This is because in leading international schools, we admit high-achieving students and we graduate high-achieving students. They come in smart, They come in with great goals, they continue their pathway through high school, and they do end up going to top universities worldwide. And we just keep repeating the cycle. We need to do better than this. We need to understand how can we take our curriculum content and how can we have our students be critical and creative thinkers. When I was coaching a basketball team way back in the day, I was watching a scrimmage. And watching this scrimmage, the students were tossing the ball back and forth aimlessly. It was simply getting passed around the court with no real thought or desire. It really started to bother me. So I stopped the play, I beat my whistle, and I pointed at the athlete and I said, "What are you doing? And why are you doing it?" And the student looks at me blankly. So why are you doing it? Why do you have the ball? Where is it going to go? Doesn't know. I then decide for our next 2 weeks of practices that we're going to play a game of freeze tag, where I beat my whistle, they hold the ball, and I ask them, "What are you doing? And why are you doing it?" For 2 weeks, these students still didn't know. And then I realized it was me. It was me as the coach that didn't identify what the strategic plan was, and that I didn't allow my athletes to know what my long-term goal was. So I changed things. Next season, I called my team together at halftime, and I would ask the players, "What are you doing well?" And they would talk, and they would chat, and they would synthesize, and they would think about the information. But the most important thing that I would ask them is, what are they doing well? What is the other team doing well? That's critical thinking. That's identifying the opposition's team and how can I stop them? How can I be a better player? Because I know and I'm thinking about what they're going to do next. After that season, I can confidently tell you that they were better players. So, using that example and a mission statement, as I had mentioned previously, many schools are so encompassed by the idea that students need to be critical and creative thinkers. So here's an example. And this is not our school's mission statement. This is just an example. Our students are critical and creative thinkers. Does that have a depth to it? Does that explain what we think a creative thinker is? What does a critical thinker do? So instead, we revise it. Again, this is not our mission statement. The students at BCISB are able to use our curricular content to think creatively and utilize critical thinking skills. So, from that, I ask you to build your own. I want you to think about your course, whether you're a kindergarten teacher to a 12th grade teacher. If you're an elementary teacher, you might be wondering, what would she like me to focus on? Would she like me to focus on math? Or would she like me to focus on literacy studies? Or is grade 1 as a whole? That's up to you. But I want you to think about, what is your overarching goal? What is your one-sentence mission statement of what you want your students to accomplish by the end of the course? What is the point of what you do? I'll ask you to do that in a quick think, pair, share activity. Share with the person sitting next to you, what is the point of your course and why do you do what you do in one sentence? Thank you for sharing your answers. I really liked what I heard from everyone here. That was a fun activity. So once we've identified what that mission statement is, what that long-term goal is in our course, in our instruction, it's from there that we determine how we assess it. And notice how I said assess it. I didn't say how we judge it. I didn't say how we mark it. I didn't say how we graded it. I said, how can we assess that goal. On the basketball court, you don't often see anyone grading or marking somebody's three-point shot. They assess it. They help. They support the student to understand where they are and where they want to go. What should then occur in your classroom? If you've pre-assessed and you've determined what students already know and where they're performing, you then need to decide what's occurring in your classroom. And how will you measure that goal? How will you know your students are achieving that content? How are they meeting the mastery of that curricular skill? And from that, how will they transfer that knowledge? How will they apply that knowledge in real life, in your course, and in the future? So I want you to take a minute and think about that. You have your goal. How are you going to reach it? And how are you going to know that your students have met that goal? In many of the leading international schools, we utilize a platform known as Atlas. So I'd like to speak briefly about the difference between Atlas and the UBD template. Atlas is a map that demonstrates vertical alignment and usage of curricular competencies. It allows teachers and administrators to look at all course subjects school-wide and to ensure that there's vertical alignment within their curricular standards. UBD is designed as a template to help you utilize your school's curriculum. So by taking the curriculum you already have and by embedding it inside the UBD template to help further your instruction. It's similar to the Atlas planning guides that many of you have seen before, with 3 stages of planning, but it's opposite. That's it. It's just opposite. It's thinking about the end, your end goal, what do you want your students to learn, and how are you going to get there? Let's take a look at the template. Here are the 3 stages. We need to identify our desired results. What do we want to know that our students can do? What is it that I want the students to understand, to know, and to be able to do? Stage 2. Determine acceptable evidence. How will I know that the students know what I want them to know? Plan learning experiences. What ways can I assess students in the classroom to know that they know? So here you establish your desired results, okay? This is where your goal is. You need to take the unit goal and you need to place it here. Then you need to identify what you want your students to understand. Usually, that is demonstrated by inputting your curriculum standards. And again, this can be utilized in any form and any type of curriculum. Then you need to think about your essential questions. What questions are you going to prompt your students that are going to help them establish that goal? Stage 2, assessment evidence. Performance tasks versus other evidence. Performance tasks. That's when we utilize our strategies of formative assessment. That's when we're checking on our students. We're creating formative tasks to frequently check in to make sure that they are learning from our goal. And then lastly, we come up with our learning activities. That's when we plan the labs. That's when we plan the projects. That's when we plan the little unit tests. All of that is embedded to come up with our final goal. So simply put, understanding by design is beginning with the end in mind. It's creating a goal that you as an instructor know, and a goal that you and your classroom want to establish together. From that goal, you create meaningful activities that lead to a meaningful assessment. For more information on understanding by design or how to utilize the UBD template, please feel free to contact me at any time. Due to copyrights, I cannot share the template with you. However, I'm more than happy to assist you and direct you in the ways that you can purchase these products. Once again, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed learning about understanding by design, and I hope that this will help you utilize effective instructional and assessment strategies in your classroom. Thank you.
I start now? Oh, okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name's Hadden Allen, and I am the Vice Principal at British Columbia International School. It's a privilege to be here with you today. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my webinar. I hope that you were able to take away something from this that you can utilize in your professional practice. It's certainly something that's helped me with curriculum and design, and of course instruction and assessment. And as I mentioned in my webinar, I'm more than happy to speak further about what the UBD design looks like and how you can utilize it in your school. Currently, I'm working at BCISB, where we utilize the British Columbia curriculum, and I have diverse experience with multiple curriculums, ranging from the American Common Core to various Canadian curriculas, as well as working underneath the International Baccalaureate, the IB framework, with both PYP and MYP. So I'm open to any questions. I'm happy to speak further about this. And once again, thank you so much for attending my seminar today.
ค่ะสวัสดีค่ะชื่อพลอยณัชชาชัยคุณนะคะชื่อเล่นชื่อฟ้านะคะฟ้าเป็นฝ่ายการตลาดของโรงเรียนนานาชาติ British Columbia กรุงเทพนะคะก็เดี๋ยววันนี้นะคะจะรับหน้าที่เป็นtranslator นะคะสำหรับท่านผู้ชมคนไหนที่มีคำถามนะคะหรือว่าอยากจะสอบถามเข้ามาก็สามารถ inbox เข้ามาในเพจได้เลยนะคะหรือว่าถามคำถามมาได้เลยหลังไมค์เนาะแล้วก็สำหรับคำถามภาษาไทยหรือว่าภาษาอังกฤษถ้าตรงไหนที่อยากจะทราบก็สามารถ DM มาได้เลยนะคะแล้วเดี๋ยวฟ้าจะช่วยแปลให้สำหรับวันนี้ค่ะ
I'm also happy to speak to any other questions or comments that you might have regarding curriculum mapping within your school, changing from one curricula to another, assessment, really anything. I'm here to help.
So the first question is how to start UBD with young student.
That's a wonderful question. Thank you for that. Basically, to answer that, you have to identify what unit that you would like to focus on. So Ms. Fock, you would like to translate? And Ms. Fock, could you clarify what subject it would be for, or if it's an overarching grade level? Thank you.
ถ้าเป็นสำหรับน้องเล็กๆนะคะสำหรับ young student มีวิชาไหนเป็นพิเศษหรือเปล่าคะที่จะนำไปใช้หรือว่าเป็นการเรียนการสอนสำหรับวิชาภาษาไทยค่ะ Miss Allen, I think you can basically give them the short brief idea about how to utilize the UBD with young students.
Okay, wonderful.
While
Let's take science for an example. Science is an awesome subject to utilize within any curricula. So if you were going to take a science unit and say that you wanted to take your science unit and plan the unit based around something like mixtures and solutions. I know that mixtures and solutions in the science curriculum starts at a very young age and of course progresses. So if you were to utilize science and mixtures and solutions, what you would do is you would identify what is your goal? What is your end goal? So if my end goal as the teacher is to have my students understand the importance of mixture and solutions, I need to take that as my goal before planning the unit. Do you want to translate that and all?
Yes ก็อย่างคำถามแรกเลยนะคะก็จะขอยกตัวอย่างเป็นวิชาวิทยาศาสตร์แล้วกันเนาะเพราะว่าวิชาวิทยาศาสตร์ก็เป็นวิชาที่น้องๆตั้งแต่ชั้นเด็กเล็กจนถึงเด็กโตเนี่ยได้ใช้กันก็อย่างวิชาวิทยาศาสตร์นะคะก็จะเป็นวิชาที่สอนให้เด็กนักเรียนเนี่ยหาโซลูชันหรือว่าหาวิธีการนะคะก็สำหรับคีย์หลักเลยนะคะถ้าจะนำมาใช้ในส่วนของ UBD หรือว่า understand by design เนี่ยก็คืออันดับแรกเลยครูผู้สอนเนี่ยก็ต้องมี goal หรือว่ามีเป้าหมายที่แน่ชัดสำหรับการเรียนการสอนหรือว่าวัตถุประสงค์นะคะแล้วก็แจกแจงให้นักเรียนเนี่ยได้รับรู้ด้วยว่าสิ่งที่เราต้องการจากเขาหรือว่าเป้าหมายที่เราจะทำร่วมกันเนี่ยคืออะไรอย่างเช่นวิธีการหาโซลูชันหรือว่าวิธีการที่จะหาคำตอบในการค้นคว้าอะไรแบบนี้ค่ะก็จะต้องแยกให้นักเรียนทราบโดยชัดเจนว่าสิ่งที่เรามองหาเนี่ยคืออะไรเพื่อเป็นการทำงานร่วมกันค่ะ
So once you've identified the end goal, from that end goal, so again, the example mixtures and solutions, if my end goal is wanting my students to understand the importance of mixtures and solutions, I would therefore then design my final assessment first. I would then identify that is my goal that I want at the end of the unit for all of my students to understand and to be able to apply and transfer that knowledge. So therefore, I would design my final project, my final test, whether it be something that's a project-based learning activity, a unit test. I would design the end of the unit before I start to plan the activities to allow the students to gain that content knowledge. So it's beginning with the end in mind.
ก็ อย่างเช่นนะคะสมมุติว่าตัวอย่างเนาะก็คือจะให้นักเรียนเนี่ยแยกแยะระหว่างmixture แล้วก็ solution หรือว่าวิธีการหาคำตอบเนี่ยทีนี้คีย์หลักของครูผู้สอนเองก็คือพอเรามีเป้าหมายแล้วเนี่ยเราต้องไปแพลนก่อนว่าจุดประสงค์หลักของเราจริงๆสำหรับการเรียนการสอนตรงนี้เนี่ยคืออะไรแล้วก็เราแพลนจากจุดประสงค์หรือว่าเป้าหมายหลักของเราเพื่อทำมาเป็นโปรเจกต์ให้นักเรียนเรียนเราไม่ได้แพลน along the way แต่ว่าเราแพลนไปถึงจุดมุ่งหมายที่เราต้องการให้นักเรียนจะได้รับจริงๆในท้ายที่สุดของบทเรียนนะคะแล้วก็แพลนกลับมาให้นักเรียนเนี่ยได้ทำตามสิ่งที่เรากำหนดไว้ตามที่เป้าหมายที่เราต้องการค่ะ
So after you've identified that and you've gone ahead and planned your final task, your final assessment, it's then that you decide, how am I going to create lessons to deliver the content within that unit? So the first step is identifying the end. The second step is how am I going to get my students to understand that content? And then the first step is to pre-assess and to identify what do my students already know. As teachers, we become very focused in having our students grasp all the content, understanding all of the strands in our curriculum. And that's a mistake that we make as teachers because we're constantly trying to get through the curriculum and to have our students understand every single one of the standards. But if we predetermine and we pre-assess our students' prior knowledge going forward into the unit, it allows us as teachers to understand what they already know and to then plan from the content onwards.
All right. I think that's very, very good answer.
Thank you, Miss Ba.
You're welcome. So I'll move through the next question because we have quite a long list of the questions.
Okay.
Yeah. So for the next question is, does UBD work with all subject areas, and how do we evaluate success of the student?
That is an amazing question. Something I would like to say about UBD itself is, I'm sorry, I'm just turning my air off. Something I would like to say about UBD that I find so fascinating is that it's not only applicable in any subject, but it's also applicable in business. It's applicable with anything that you're utilizing in life. It's again just understanding your end goal and planning with that end goal in mind. So that's the first part. I'll let you translate that, and then I'll speak to this assessing the success.
Sure. ก็สำหรับUBD นะคะไม่ได้ใช้ได้แค่เฉพาะในการเรียนการสอนเท่านั้นก็คือสามารถใช้ได้ทุกวิชาแล้วก็นอกจากนั้นแล้วเนี่ยจริงๆสามารถเอาไป apply กับ business plan ได้ด้วยนะคะก็เดี๋ยวจะให้ Miss Hadden อธิบายเพิ่มเติมอีกนิดหน่อยแล้วกันเพราะว่าเรายังมี list คำถามอีกเยอะเลยแต่ว่าทยอยส่งกันเข้ามาได้เลยนะคะจะพยายามตอบให้หมดเนาะค่ะ
So a great example of that, not using it inside a classroom setting, for example, would be if you were coaching a sport. Say you were coaching swimming and you wanted to utilize UBD to have your athletes understand how to improve their breaststroke, for example. So you would take that end goal of wanting my athletes to understand how to incorporate stronger breaststroke skills into their swimming. And from that goal, you plan how you're going to effectively instruct them to do so. To measure their success, that becomes how you determine how you want to assess them. If you want it to be through a project, through a final unit test, throughout the unit, throughout your content, you're going to consistently formatively assess them. You're going to check for understanding. And, as best professional practice teaches us, we do that step by step with every lesson that we have by continuously checking for understanding. So to measure student success, it's something that's a continuum throughout the unit. And then, of course, at the end, when you determine how your students have achieved. And that's just one side of it. The other important aspect as educators is to remember to reflect on that unit after it's been instructed. You might want to go back after you've finished your unit and think to yourself and to reflect and think, maybe I should have spent more time in this area. Or maybe I wouldn't do that assignment. I would have moved right ahead to the next assignment. Or maybe I would have spent more time in one area. And that's why reflection is so important. So it's a continuum of measuring success, as well as that final end goal. And then as a professional at the end, determining what you could do differently next time.
So basically after you finish your class, you may want to revise everything and check with the students' response to check that they understand correctly and right?
Absolutely. And that's something that as professionals we should all be doing consistently. And also actually having your students help you do that reflection, because they will give you a lot of insight as well as to areas that they wanted to spend more time on, that they needed more clarification on, or in the opposite, something they already knew and it was far too easy and you could have skipped by.
So we have a very interesting question. Thank you คุณ PM เบือนสุขนะคะ She said very interesting topic. Thanks for
Thank
sharing.
you.
Could you please give an example for backward learning and activities in language subject?
In language?
In language.
Okay, sure. Give me 1 second to think here. All right. Okay. If you were going to utilize the UBD template in language arts in English, let's say we wanted to talk about character development. We would first choose a text, choose a novel that we understand there's a strong development of character and character traits that are portrayed throughout the novel. So you would predetermine what you're going to read and how you want your students to identify character traits in language arts. And from there, you would build your activities and your lessons and you would structure it around that final end goal. Or, sorry, Ms. Fott, does he mean maybe like a different language, maybe Thai or French or Spanish, just to clarify?
Yes.
Okay. So if you were teaching a second language, for example, with Thai, and of course, sorry that I don't speak Thai, but if you were going to use a unit in Thai and you were trying to teach students about vowel sounds, your end goal would be, how can I get my students to identify different vowel sounds within the Thai language? That's your end goal. So you have to determine, how am I going to get there? You get there. Oh, I'll let you get.
Okay, thank you. ก็คร่าวๆนะคะก็คืออย่างตัวอย่างเนาะสำหรับคุณครูท่านที่สอนภาษาที่2นะคะวันนี้ก็ Miss Allen ก็ขอยกตัวอย่างเป็นวิชาภาษาไทยแล้วกันเนาะว่าสมมุติว่า goal ของเป้าหมายของคุณครูผู้สอนเนี่ยคือการสอนให้เรียนออกเสียงภาษาไทยได้ถูกต้องนะคะด้วย goal อันนี้เนี่ยทีนี้คุณครูผู้สอนก็ต้องกลับมาทำการบ้านแล้วว่าจะทำยังไงให้นักเรียนทุกคนในห้องหรือว่าในคลาสของตัวเองเนี่ยออกเสียงได้ถูกต้องแล้วเราก็ทำการบ้านจากเป้าหมายของเราตรงนั้นนะคะ along the way มาแล้วก็เพื่อดูว่าเราจะจัดหาแบบฝึกหัดแบบไหนได้ที่จะทำให้นักเรียนเนี่ยบรรลุถึงเป้าหมายที่เรากำหนดไว้ค่ะ Yes so I think for the next question is for the UBD that you have recommended is it about the social responsibility and something about showing up of the student or to let there be more confidence also.
Oh, I love that question. So maybe dealing more with interpersonal skills with students. Yeah. Absolutely. You could utilize the UBD template in a counseling type session. Perhaps you're dealing with how do I want my students to become more confident in oral presentations? Your end goal is developing oral presentation skills and confidence. So that's your end goal. So that would be your UBD template, and then identifying ways to build that confidence. Maybe that would be in small group sessions, practicing through videos, working one-on-one with peers, but your end goal would be still to establish building confidence.
ก็สำหรับคำถามนี้นะคะมิสแฮตตี้ก็บอกว่าเป็นคำถามที่ดีมากๆเลยนะคะก็อย่างเช่นการเรียนรู้ที่อย่างที่คุณทิพาวันถามมานะคะก็สามารถนำการสอนสไตล์นี้นะคะไปใช้กับ ไปแอพพลายกับการเรียนรู้ที่มีต่อส่วนรวมแล้วก็การแสดงออกมากขึ้นได้เช่นกันอย่างเช่นคุณครูผู้สอนเองเนี่ยต้องการที่จะ build confidence ให้กับนักเรียนเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยเป้าหมายหรือว่า goal หลักที่เราจะทำดีไซน์การเรียนการสอนของคอร์สนี้เนี่ยก็คือเป้าหมายที่ทำยังไงที่เราจะให้นักเรียนเนี่ยบรรลุความสามารถของเขาหรือว่าสามารถเพิ่มconfidence หรือว่าความตั้งใจของเขาได้เพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยเราก็จะมาดีไซน์กันต่อในส่วนของวิธีการเรียนการสอนอาจจะเป็นการสร้างคลาสเล็กๆหรือว่าทำให้เขาเนี่ยมีโอกาสได้ออกมาพูด presentation มากขึ้นหน้าห้องเรียนหรือว่า public speaking การพูดในที่สาธารณะมากขึ้นเพื่อที่จะ build up หรือว่าส่งเสริมในด้านของความเชื่อมั่นในตัวเองนะคะก็อันนี้ก็จะเป็นคร่าวๆให้ดูว่าวิธีการออกแบบดีไซน์คอร์สเรียนของในแต่ละจุดประสงค์เนี่ยจะเป็นประมาณไหนนะคะ May we please know how we can incorporate UBD when it comes to English as foreign and second language in TVET curriculum for non-native speaking countries?
Okay, excellent. Again, as someone learning additional languages myself, absolutely. You just have to determine what do you want your end goal to be. So the overarching end goal in any languages that you want your students to understand and to be able to communicate, to comprehend, to read and write in that language. So you have to determine the steps that you're going to take to get your students to that level. So it's again beginning with that end site. So maybe creating smaller units that will allow you to build content around specific ideas.
Thank you for the answer. I think that's pretty good. For the next question, can you please give us some inputs on how we can use UBD for clustered classes, such as 50 to 100 students from different majors in one setting for online for English subject?
Well, first of all, whomever asked that question, my hat is off to you for teaching such a large classroom. That's very, very impressive. When it comes to UBD, I most certainly recommend that you also incorporate differentiation. So you identify within your classroom your high ability students, your mid ability students, and your low ability students. Because especially in a group of 50 or more students, which is incredible, you're going to have such a large range of academic needs. So yes, absolutely, utilizing UBD the same way you normally would, but then incorporating differentiation.
And for the next question is, how do you teach your students to learn in the pandemic time?
Oh, wonderful. That was such a challenge for us. What we had to do, and due to COVID, we were actually able to try this twice. So we went to online learning platforms using Google Classroom and Seesaw, and with those platforms, through that, we offered instruction through webinars, through flipped classroom, the same way I'm doing it now. We essentially just took our schedule and offered it online. I'm not confident that that would be the best educational setting, especially with younger students, but I think that everyone worldwide had to do what they could do and were able to do during this unfortunate time. And I think it was a learning experience for all educators worldwide.
Thank you. And I know that it's been very difficult for everyone during that difficult time. Did you do the action research in class to see how UBD work in every areas?
Sorry, Ms. Fa, can you repeat that question?
Yes, for the next question is, did you do the action research in class to see how UBD work in every class or every areas?
Well, as a professional, I've taught basically everything from kinder to grade 12, and I have utilized it in every subject area in all of my classes.
And for the next question, it's in Thai, so I am going to translate
Okay.
it. So, Kun Sudarat asks if UBD can work to motivate the students to be more focused on the session that they're study in case if they don't really interested into the class.
Absolutely. It's absolutely critical that you establish engagement in all of your lessons. And to create engagement, I always feel strongly about utilizing with older students. Oh, sorry. I always try to. Oh, okay. Thank you. I always try to establish strong student engagement because when students are interested in what they're learning, they take more pride and ownership within that subject area. With younger students, I, of course, utilize play-based learning and learning through inquiry, allowing students to identify what it is that they are interested in. And through that will establish engagement on its own because you're allowing them to help determine what they want to learn. And when you want to learn something, all of the research tells us that you are more focused, you are more interested, and you're certainly more engaged.
That's very impressive. ก็สำหรับคำถามเมื่อกี้นะคะก็สามารถนำ UBD เนี่ยมา apply ใช้ในการเรียนการสอนได้อีกเช่นกันแต่ว่า Miss Hattie ก็แนะนำว่าในวิธีการเรียนการสอนที่นักเรียนเนี่ยนะคะไม่ได้สนใจในส่วนของเนื้อหาการเรียนมากนักเราอาจจะต้องนำวิธีการเรียนการสอนแบบอื่นอย่างเช่นแบบ play based learning เข้ามาร่วมด้วยเพื่อให้นักเรียนเนี่ยมีส่วนร่วมในการเรียนการสอนเพื่อที่เขาเองก็จะได้รู้สึกสนุกกับสิ่งที่เขาทำและเขารู้ว่าสิ่งที่เขาทำเนี่ยคืออะไรนะคะแล้วก็จะมีปฏิสัมพันธ์ระหว่างครูกับนักเรียนมากขึ้นเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยก็จะช่วยทำให้น้องๆนักเรียนเนี่ยเรียกว่ามีความสนใจมากขึ้นในเนื้อหาที่เรียนนะคะ so for the next question the question is pretty long so I am going to read it
Okay.
Yes so I just started teaching a higher grade at my school due to changes.What are some ways I can build my lessons and go with a class that I'm taking over from another teacher? I started at the end of the third quarter and exams are about to start, then fourth quarter starts. New student and different grade, all new to me. So yeah, probably you can give them some advice to how to...
Absolutely. It's always a challenge to jump into a class that another teacher has facilitated or ran. And of course, we see this, so frequently with teachers that might have to take a leave of absence or health leave or maternity leave. And my best advice for that would be to create a lot of benchmark assessments and make sure that you're utilizing pre-assessments going into your units so that you can identify the academic needs within your classroom and also determine what areas of the curriculum in that subject have already been covered or maybe need more time towards mastery. So that's just one aspect. Of course, building a positive student rapport is incredibly important as well. So taking the time to get to know those students, playing some games, getting to know them more on an interpersonal level. And then in regards to teaching a new subject area, of course, that's a challenge for all of us. And I think the best advice for that would be just to try to reach out to another teacher that's taught that area, that's taught that subject, certainly looking, online, reaching out to different networks of teachers that might want to share resources with you. Most of the time, teachers are always willing to do that. We all want to help each other. So yeah, just networking, pre-assessing your students, and trying to cultivate that positivity within your classroom to build a positive student relationship.
Any example of UBD activities?
So UBD is more of a template. It's something more to structure how you want your unit to, what you want your unit to look like. The activities come from your content. So whatever subject it is that you're teaching is what you would have to build your activities around. Within that template, within the UBD template, as you notice, there are 3 steps. The last step being the final project or final test. The second step being that content, being those activities. So unfortunately, without teaching that class myself, I can't really offer ideas of activities, but if they would like to ask me another time about a certain topic, I would love to help with that.
And Mr. Jordan Simmons said, this is really helpful and beneficial information. Thank you so much, and I'm really getting so much out of this.
Thank you so much.
And the next question is, how do you assess each student's performance?
I utilize many different forms of assessment in my practice. I, of course, utilize benchmark testing in regards to standardized testing, maybe using MAP testing, PM benchmarks, DRAs. But for me, assessment is something that needs to be fluid. It can be something as simple as a checking for understanding with a thumbs up at the end of a class. An exit ticket is a strategy I like to do. So when my students are leaving, I might have them answer a question on the way out the door. And it's just something that I can internalize to identify if they understand a certain area.
And for the last few questions, how to overcome online learning and teaching challenges during COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is a question on everyone's mind, and of course we will hopefully not have to return to that platform. But I do know with my peers and colleagues back home that they are going again back to online learning, and I think it's just again being there to support your students, not just academically, but being there and being able to speak to them. Maybe it's setting up Skypes, Google Meets. I've seen some of our teachers do things just like reading bedtime stories, having all of them log in and play a game together. So it's just continuously trying to cultivate an environment for students that still demonstrates your love and support as an educator.
All right. I think we came to the last question, which is,
Thank you.
Next semester, they'll be introducing the competency base to apply in the grade 1 to 12 in Thailand. How do you think about this idea?
What I really like about competency-based curricula is that it's such a structured understanding that has so many different layers to it. It allows teachers to be able to effectively understand what they need to teach, how they want to instruct, and how they're going to effectively deliver that content and assessment.
Thank you, Ms. Hadden, for your time to read through all the UBD for this session.
Thank you guys so much for taking the time to meet with me today. I loved all of your questions. Best of luck to all of you that are starting new courses, worried about the pandemic, how we are going, and I really, really hope to help you out in the future. And once again, thank you so much.
Thank you ขอบคุณทุกท่านนะคะสำหรับเวลาที่เข้ามาแลกเปลี่ยนความคิดเห็นกันนะคะหวังว่าจะมีโอกาสได้เจอกันคราวหน้านะคะขอบคุณค่ะ
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
We're really proud of the high-quality, world-class education offered through our BC offshore schools.
British Columbia has a number of offshore schools in different countries, pretty much all over the world.
When you enter into this program, you are entering to a new world, to new opportunities.
All the different cultures and political views coming together, we have these discussions and debates that are really great.
They set your mind to a way that you can deal with any problem you face in life.
We widen our views. Yeah, you can just be a little bit more of an international citizen.
BC International School and the teachers, they encourage you to have your own thought, speak up, and become more independent as well.
We push students to think critically, to problem solve.
BC Offshore School is more focused on student-centered teaching.
We are exposing them to not only new ideas and content, but the way of learning is different.
We link things to our real lives, so it gets us more excited about learning it, which makes us want to study it more. It makes us want to pursue it more.
We find their spark, and that's why they enjoy coming to school every day.
We teach 21st century learners who are able to engage fully in the international world.
We try to blend devotion to study, strong computational skills, the inquiry-based, group research, interaction, higher level thinking skills.
They're engaged. That to me is the most important thing.
Our inspection process is unique. It's a balance of regulation, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? And this works well in other schools.
Students graduating from our schools, once they've completed their Dogwood diploma, have limitless opportunities.
Dogwood diploma is highly recognized in many countries.
That diploma opens the door for them to go to any Western university.
They step into their first classes in university. They're really prepared and they do well.
These universities tell us that our students' English level is higher than their first and second year university students.
In these global times, it's always an advantage to be able to speak more than one language.
English is important for me because I want to be an international lawyer.
In the future, I want to be an astronomer.
I'm planning on taking mechanical engineering.
Multicultural diversity is a gift and a benefit to their life, and that is the BC curriculum.
With BC certified teachers, students are uniquely being prepared for global leadership.
They have what it takes to be citizens of the world.